play it all or nothing. Yeah, need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Poker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Nothing holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing. I don't like Dutch, don't even matter, you know I'm a face. And when I roll a paper, I like to go double. Run up a check, flip a W, make it an M. I need a couple.
Welcome to Takeover, the most underrated sports debate show on YouTube. And we are back with another one. Guys, how's it going?
I'm doing good for the most part.
I'm not that good, honestly. The Atlanta Braves are depressing. Very depressing. Just reminds me of how much it sucks to be an Atlanta sports fan. The Hawks game.
I could have told you that, though, Josh. I mean, I tell you that every week.
I know you do, but I thought the Braves would be different because they've been different the last few years, but they can't escape it. Moving on to our first topic, a bombshell drop this past week. Both the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma are trying to get out of the Big 12 and move into the SEC. So far, I believe it's been approved. What do y'all think? Do they have a shot to make it in the SEC?
Well, obviously, this is good for the SEC because, you have TV and marketing and everything. The big conference just gets bigger. I believe this could benefit Oklahoma and Texas to a certain degree because obviously they get to play on those bigger televised games, playing against bigger opponents, and they make more money, which could improve their recruitment and things of that nature. However, I'm going to start off with Texas. I don't think Texas can compete in the SEC. Frankly, because I believe Texas, they're struggling already in the conference that they're in right now. And when you look at what they've done in the last decade or so, the last 11 years or so, the last thing that was noteworthy that they did was beat Georgia. And I don't think that's really anything to really brag about, at least right now. When you look at what the Big 12 and you look at the conference that they play in, they're playing with the likes of Kansas, West Virginia, Baylor, Texas Tech. And when you look at just looking at the bottom half of the SEC, you're looking at teams like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Kentucky. Those teams have better winning percentages. They have better recruiting. They have better resources, and they're just getting better by the years because they're taking that money and they're pushing it into their recruiting and they're using it to get resources. So they're only getting better and they're only evolving. I haven't even talked about Alabama, Auburn, Florida, LSU, and all those other teams in the SEC. So maybe if they do join the SEC and they get more resources, and of course they just hired Steve Sarkisian, so maybe it might be something that could help them. But as of right now, I'm going to say that they're not going to be able to compete. But Oklahoma, I feel like it's a little bit give or take with them. I feel like they do have a chance to compete because, well, number one, I'm thinking about Lincoln Riley and how he leads the offense as well. I believe that offense will be able to keep up with other offenses in the SEC. The only thing that's very questionable for me about Oklahoma will be their defense, because obviously the top defenses in the nation, a lot of them come from the SEC. So, but like I said, with recruiting and being in those big televised games and getting more marketing, they could get money to push into their recruiting so they can acquire better defensive pieces. But also another thing they're going to have to get used to if they go to the SEC is that they're in the Big 12. So they're used to getting around maybe like 11 wins a year and obviously getting an easy route to the conference championship. It's not going to be that easy when you go to the SEC. Like I said, you're playing against teams like Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Florida, Georgia, all those other teams. So it's going to be harder and it's going to be easier to slip up against those type teams. So as of right now, I'm going to say no to Texas, but Oklahoma has a chance.
First thing I just want to bring out when I saw this whole move happen, I was like, there's no doubt about what's the best conference in football. The SEC is without a doubt the best conference to play football in. But if you want to talk about competing to me in the SEC is at least making it to the SEC championship or making it to the national championship game. And I don't think Oklahoma or Texas will be able to do that. So my short answer is no. And here's why. In the 2010s era, you look at what Oklahoma and Texas have done. They both finished 500 versus SEC teams. I think Oklahoma is 4-4 and Texas is 3-3. And you look at when they play these SEC teams, it's usually in bowl games. And if you've ever seen an SEC team play in a bowl game, it's kind of uninspired football. You've seen Auburn used to UCF. You've seen Alabama in 2008 used to a Utah team. Things that usually wouldn't happen in a regular season. So when you factor in that they'll be playing these guys during their regularly scheduled time, I feel like playing in Jordan-Hare is way harder than playing Auburn in a bowl game. Going to the Swamp is way harder than playing Florida in a bowl game. Going to Bryant-Denny Stadium is a totally different atmosphere. And I don't know how good those teams are going to transpire coming to the SEC. And so you look at the 2010s era, it was the BCS for five straight years, and then it goes to the what's it called? The playoff in 2017. And you look at Oklahoma when they've gotten there. They've played 3 SEC teams and they've been there 3 times. They've lost every time to SEC teams, whether it was Baker Mayfield losing, who won the Heisman Trophy, whether it was Kyler Murray losing to Alabama when he won the Heisman Trophy, or when they look like a JV team versus LSU when they played them. So I'm not sure how good they're going to be. And as far as Texas has not been relevant since 2009. Like, Texas as a team has basically fallen off of the cliff. So I really don't know what was their motivation to really jump into this conference. And then you look at what they did last year. I think both teams have 2 or 3 losses. I don't think that's going to transpire well because, as Deandra said, the bottom half of the SEC is still deep. You still have those teams like Kentucky. You still have Mississippi State. And, Josh, you give me that look, but I feel like anyone can lose on any Saturday in the SEC. I've seen Ole Miss stick with Alabama for 4 quarters. I've seen teams upset different types of teams in the SEC because that's what type of conference that is. So I think them playing in the SEC is really going to show them that there's levels to this, and I don't think they'll necessarily be ready for that. So as far as them competing, Oklahoma may be able to get by because Lincoln Riley is a great offensive coach, and I've been saying that offense is going to gear towards winning championships in future football. So maybe they'll be at a level of a Texas A&M, maybe a sneaky team you may have to worry about. But if we're talking about Texas will be as relevant as Missouri is in the SEC. So will they compete? Probably not. Be fun to watch, though.
Cam, you referenced Ole Miss stick with Alabama for 4 quarters. Why did Ole Miss stick with Alabama?
Our early defensive struggles for Bama.
And it wasn't anything to do with the fact that they had a great offense and they were slinging the rock, and Lane Kiffin's a great play caller.
I think it's more of a struggle on defense. I feel like Alabama the past 3 years have been struggling on defense earlier in that season. But you go ahead, though.
All right, bro, go crazy. But I think y'all are underselling how good Oklahoma is. Like, you can bring up the stats and you can bring up they've done this against SEC teams, whatever. You can use the bowl games. I think you look at what Oklahoma has built. Oklahoma has built arguably the second best program outside of the SEC in the nation, right behind Clemson. I don't see anybody else outside of the SEC doing what they're doing right now. Maybe Ohio State, but Ohio State, even then, when they barely make it to the conference play with the college football playoff, it seems like they tend to lose. And then when they make it, they still get blown out, even in the championship. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Oklahoma is going to come in and compete with Alabama, because nobody in the SEC right now competes with Alabama, because Alabama is head and shoulders above every other college football team. But I do believe they can come in, and I think they can compete with the Floridas, with the Georgias, with the Texas A&Ms, with the Auburns. I think they can come in and mess with these teams because they haven't had the SEC exposure. They haven't had the SEC marketing campaign behind them, and they're still getting all these 5-star recruits. They've created 2 number 1 overall picks at quarterback, and they might have a 3rd in Spencer Rattler, depending on how this season goes. So I don't see any reason why they would be able to deal with it once they get in. First of all, they're getting a bunch of exposure now. That's going to help them in the recruiting trail, and they're not moving over until 2025. This isn't going to be they're moving in tomorrow. They've got 4 years to recruit for this. So I think Oklahoma is going to be fine. Oklahoma will not come in and immediately challenge Alabama. I think they'll come in and they'll be more of a Georgia, where they're able to stick with Alabama in certain aspects of the game, but Alabama just out-talents them, out-hustles them, and just beats them. And they have much better offense than Georgia, so I trust them a lot more. But anyway, I had to get my Georgia jab in, my bad. As for Texas, I agree with all y'all. Texas hasn't been relevant since Vince Young was a big thing in college football. And the reason they're making the move is quite simple. Even though they haven't been relevant, they're still one of the biggest brands because they're playing in Texas, and Texas is crazy for football. Texas is crazy in general, but they're crazy for football. So they're still going to make money. They're still going to bring in recruits. They need to get a coach that's going to develop these guys, because I think that was the biggest problem with the Tom Herman era. Tom Herman didn't develop the talent he got. He got all this raw talent, and basically the players were the same as when they left as when they came in. So if Sarkisian can start developing talent in the next 4 years, I might change my answer. But as of now, I see Texas coming in and being a middle-class team in the SEC. They have a few good performances. They have some sneaky wins. And everybody talks about how, well, if they were in the SEC, they'd be the top of every other conference. But Oklahoma, I think, is going to come in and settle right into that upper middle class.
Josh, let me ask you a question real quick, because I feel like that Georgia dig was just a bit too wild. Do you forget who coaches the Georgia Bulldogs? That's Kirby Smart there. What team do you think Oklahoma could come in the SEC and beat? Because you said you're not going to beat the top teams. Name some teams that they could beat.
They can beat Texas A&M, especially since they don't have Kellen Mond. I think that they could beat Florida and I think they could beat everybody else below them. I think they could beat Auburn. I think they could beat Missouri, Kentucky. I think the only teams that they would truly have trouble with are Georgia and Alabama.
I don't even see them beating Auburn though. I really don't. I feel like people really underestimate what like the SEC schedule is really like. Going to Jordan Hare is a totally different experience than playing them in a bowl game. The whole entire atmosphere is different. I've seen the wildest upsets happen all in 1 weekend in the SEC. I feel like it is so much harder to play these teams. And it's not like they're gonna see them like one time and they're done. They're gonna see these teams every week. And they're going to be just as hungry. So I'm not sure how Oklahoma is going to acclimate that. So usually in their conference, they'll have a break. They play Kansas. Kansas is a basketball school. Okay? I really want to see how they're going to translate their game to the SEC game. And I don't feel like it's going to translate necessarily well.
I mean, you say that they play a basketball school. I mean, the SEC has a baseball school in Vanderbilt. That's a soft place to land. So, I mean, there you go.
That's one school.
You named one school too, Caleb.
I mean, I can go the people of it. Okay, Texas Tech. Are they great at football too?
They used to be a problem, but not anymore. All right, is Tennessee good at football? No, they were 3-7 last year in the conference.
Sure, but Tennessee, I feel like would still pose a threat. This is the SEC. I'm still saying as low as they still pose a threat. They'll still pose a threat. I feel like you see these bigger teams walk in the SEC and make it look easy. You see Alabama and make it look easy, but I feel like they can still pose a threat. I've seen a higher-rated Louisville team lose to Kentucky with Lamar Jackson. So I'm saying, I've seen this happen where they think it's a cakewalk in the SEC because they see the bigger teams bullying these smaller teams, and they figure out what this game's about. And I feel like the exact same thing's going to happen to Oklahoma and Texas.
Can we start talking about these? You see these bigger teams bullying the smaller teams. Oklahoma is the bigger team. Oklahoma brings in 5 stars every year. They are always in the top 5 in the recruiting class. They bring in talent, and Lincoln Riley develops this talent.
Sure, but that's the same bigger team that loses to Baylor. That's the same bigger team who has those small upset losses. So how are we really going to say they're the consistent bigger team? And then when they get the chance to show how big or how good they are, they've always lost. Well, I'm saying, what are we judging it off of?
That was lost when they had a bad defense. Their defense got better last year. It's still not a great defense, but under Alex Grinch, they did get better, and they're still bringing in more talent.
I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to get y'all opinion. How do y'all think this affects, the value of college football? Because I feel like sooner or later, this could create a domino effect, and basically the SEC is going to be college football at some point. And I feel like, I don't know if Takeover fans, we have some professional wrestling fans out there, but it kind of reminds me of the time where WCW and WWF, and we each had different categories or different divisions. And then it's Vince McMahon came and bought everything up. And then you have the WWE, and it's not as good as it used to be. Well, in my personal opinion, it's not as good. So what do you guys think is going to do to the value of college football as a whole?
I think it might eliminate conferences. As crazy as that sounds, like it may just have to be no conferences in college football if that's gonna have to be the way it is. Because I don't see how any way you do it. Because if all the teams try to jump into the SEC, there's no point of being in any other conference. So you might as well have no conferences, in my opinion.
I'm not going to jump that far and say that it's going to like eliminate conferences because so far this is 2 teams. We still have a bunch of teams in the Big Ten that are good. We still have a team in the ACC that's a problem, and you still got a bunch of people out west in the Pac-12 that they're not as good, but they're still solid. So I think you still got a conference. I mean, the Big 12, once they lose these 2 teams, is going to be a joke, but you still got plenty of other conferences that have other threats. And until we start seeing like Clemson and OSU trying to get into the SEC, if that happens, then I'll start to say that we should just do away with conferences. But right now, I think I don't think it'll have it'll only really affect the Big 12.
But to segue into our next topic, it's draft night tomorrow, or honestly today when we're filming this. So it is draft night, guys. We had an episode like this last year where we was talking about who's going to be that next guy, who's going to be that pick. If you guys could pick one player out of this draft right now that could make, I'm not going to say an immediate impact, but make a big impact and definitely help his team this year, who are you guys picking?
So the easy and obvious, flashing neon sign answer to this is Cade Cunningham, because Cade Cunningham is the clear number 1 prospect in this class. But I'm not going to take the easy answer because that's boring. So after I look at Cade, I look at the next 4 to 5 people. And the one that I'm landing on right now is Scotty Barnes out of FSU. I look at Jalen Green and I think he could be a good scorer. And I think he'll be a great scorer with development. I just don't see him making a big impact this season if he's in the wrong system. I look at Jonathan Kuminga. I really don't think he's going to be a truly positive player for another 2 to 3 years because he's got the tools, but I don't think he's got the polish yet. I like Jalen Suggs as a player and a person, but I don't think he's got that one elite standout skill other than his speed that I think is going to really make a difference in the NBA right now. I think he's still a questionable shooter. I don't think he's the best at breaking people down. He'll be a good defender, but I also don't think he's a lead playmaker right now either. And then the other one is Evan Mobley. I think Evan Mobley has a chance to be the second best prospect in this class, but he's really thin. He's going to get bullied in the low post on both sides of the floor, and he doesn't really have that set offensive role yet. He's shown flashes of the face-up. He's shown flashes of a jumper. He's shown flashes of a post game, but it's not all. He's still a ball of clay. He can still be molded. When we look at Scotty Barnes is going to come in from day one and play a role. He's going to play a Draymond Green light role for whatever team picks him up. He's going to guard at the minimum 4 positions because he's 6'9" with a 7'3" wingspan, and he wants to do the dirty work. He's got the intangibles. Everybody talks about how selfless he is, how hard he works. It's a consensus across the board. He's a great guy to have around. And then on offense, he doesn't have the jump shot just yet. He's got the mechanics, but it's not all there just yet. But he's shown a willingness to shoot. He's shown a willingness to work on it. And he was running the FSU offense. And there are some future NBA players on that offense, and he was running it. He was the main point guard. So he can come in and he can already be a playmaker. He's long enough to get to the rim. He's quick enough. So he's going to come in and play defense, which always gets you on the court. And he's going to set other people up, which makes the team better. So to me, he's going to make the biggest impact in his rookie year.
Well, since you wouldn't go with him, I guess I'm going to have to because that's who I chose. I chose Cade Cunningham. I believe he has the highest ceiling. Well, he's one of the players that has the highest ceiling in this draft. When you look at his build, I believe his build is NBA ready. He's 6'8", so obviously he can see over defenders. It's going to be very difficult for people to contest his shot. He has a 7-foot wingspan, 220 pounds, so he can't be bullied. He can't be pushed around. He has a very good basketball IQ, court vision, and he can control the pace of the game very well. And he is one of the best prospects when it comes to playing on both sides of the court as well. And he's very versatile when it comes to scoring. He can be a spot-up shooter. He can score off the dribble. He can score off the pick and roll, and he has a nice form. One thing that I notice a lot is like many college players go to the NBA and some of them struggle with their form. So that's one thing that he won't have to struggle with. And he's not only is he versatile with his scoring, but he's versatile in the areas that he's scoring in as well. He can score in the lane, the mid-range, and from the 3 as he's shooting 6 threes per game, scoring 40% from 3. And, you know, a lot of people, obviously, when you go in the draft, people are going to look at these players and they're going to look at their weaknesses. Some weaknesses that some people were talking about with Cade was that he isn't extremely fast or he isn't extremely athletic, but that's what he has his size and that's what he has his body and his strength for. He can use his body and his strength to get to areas where he wants to on the court. And another criticism that people put against him are his turnovers, but I think a lot of people miss the context behind that. He was put into a lot of defensive schemes, or he was put into a lot of plays to where he was getting double team and triple team a lot. You're not going to see a lot of that in the NBA. Plus, his teammates weren't the cream of the crop. So whenever he would pass a ball, sometimes his teammates would completely drop the ball. Now, am I saying that happens 24/7? No, but that can affect what happens with turnovers as well. And I just think that speaks volumes to the player that he is, because he was able to carry his team to wins with not having the best supporting cast. So that's why I have Cade Cunningham.
In a game full of scoring guards, somebody has to play defense, whether it's been a Kyle Lowry, a Pat Bev, a Drew Holiday. Maybe Baylor's Davion Mitchell is the guy everyone should be looking at. And here's why. Because I feel like he plays defense as though he's Patrick Beverly, but he can create a shot like he's Donovan Mitchell. He has the handle. He's a freak athletically. We've seen what he's done against those higher prospects that everyone's talking about in the top 5. He's coming off of a season where he's averaged 14 points, 5 assists. So he has the ability to be a playmaker, and he's averaging 2 steals. So that's already there on his defense. And some players just have that dog inside them. I know that's not really a stat or something we can really measure from draft analytics, but it's like something that just excites the crowd, someone that can ignite a team. I feel like he can ignite a team just by the way he plays, just how hard he goes. That's how hard he can play defense. I feel like he could have an effect of maybe a Russell Westbrook, a Donovan Mitchell, a Greek Freak in the mentality type side, because he can hype up the team. So I'm really leaning towards Davion Mitchell. And to me, he really just has that it factor. Everyone's going for scoring, but who's going to guard all these guys? But because he can guard the guys and he can give them buckets at the same time. So I'm really rolling towards Davion Mitchell, how hard he plays, and his whole entire mode of how he plays. I feel like once that offensive game develops, he's going to be a serious problem in the league. So I'm going to roll with Davion Mitchell as my impact player.
And that's a solid pick. I like that. This is a deep draft, that's for sure. I think there's going to be a few guys that make some big impacts.
For sure. You know, we have another Powder Springs boy in that draft as well. You know, we had one last year. You know what I'm saying? There's something about this town. I'm coming out the town. It's crazy.
Crazy.
But that is going to wrap up our episode today. Guys, you have anything to say?
Before you end this video, I want you to pause it. I want you to scroll down. I want you to hit like. I want you to comment either a topic you want to hear us talk about, tell us who you think won a debate, give us your own take, and then you can just end it there. And then also I want you to subscribe, hit that red button, and put the bell on, because we're going to be back in the studio quite soon, and we've got a few video ideas cooked up for you guys this next school semester. I know we said it in the summer and it never really came to fruition, but that's what happens when you got 3 people that are trying to get money. So when it comes to school, man, we're gonna get some different videos out for you, and it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a good season of Takeover.
And guys, don't forget, Takeover. It may be a sports debate show, but we still play sports. And last time I checked, I got called out to play another sport, so I'm gonna announce it right here. I think Josh told me he'll give me 10 pitches. I'm going to hit 3. That's the bet. And that's going to be the IRL. We're going to do the next IRL on Takeover. I'll play baseball. I'm going to beat Josh in a game, he's played his whole entire life. It's like I beat him on every episode of Takeover. It's going to be a moment. Make sure you tune into that. That will be coming soon.
Yeah, we play it all in night. Yeah. Need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Parker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Not that holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing. I don't like Dutch, don't even matter. You know I'm facing when I roll a paper. I like to go double. Run up a check, flip a W, make it an M. I need